7. Aol Kanawai Makiawahi. In this place there is no law. I stared at the leprosy peninsula. This, according to the Board of Health, was my new home. The sight of it, along with the rocking of the steamer, made me want to vomit over the ship's rail. I took in large gulps of air so that I would not throw up. Others had been sick on this trip. I'd heard them during the night. But I was not one of them. Although the doctors said I had leprosy, I did not feel sick until I saw this place, a barren land edged with black rocks and rough seas. On the backside was a tremendous poly. The tops of those cliffs were covered with swirling clouds, so I could not tell how high they were. But it was obvious that they were taller than any poly I'd ever seen before. So the rumors are true, I thought. The high poly is a prison wall to keep us from escaping. Escape? Why should they use that word to talk about sick people? We were not criminals. What had we done to deserve imprisonment? As I stared at the cliffs, I thought maybe it was not too late to escape. Maybe I could dive into the water when the sailors weren't looking. Or could I hide below in one of the berths? But it was too late. The sailors were urging us down a rope ladder attached to the steamer rail. Below us, in the water, whaleboats waited to take us to shore. I decided I would let all the others go first. While they went, one of the sailors offered himself as my tour guide. He pointed toward the far side of the peninsula. There's a village way over there, he said. Kalau Papa. Those people refused to leave their houses. So the government didn't force them to. But don't try to settle there. Your home is in Kalawao. The sailor gestured toward a spot that was inland a little way. I thought I saw some rooftops, but the village of Kalawao was not easy to see from the ship. Closer to us was a black rock embankment at the edge of the sea, and beyond that a brown plain with boulders lying about. The hill behind the settlement is Kaurhako, said the sailor. It's an old volcano. I wondered if I could find shelter in the volcano's crater. But as if he knew my thoughts, the sailor dismissed that idea. The crater is filled with water, he said. They call it the Given Grave. Had he said grave? I needed a place to live. And he was talking to me about dying? Then another sailor urged me to leave the steamer. Go on, boy. You can't live on this ship forever. I knew I had no choice. So I dropped my bundle into the whaleboat below. Then I crawled over the rail and climbed down the rope ladder. A cold wind jerked at it so that I almost lost my grip. Such a dangerous way to unload passengers. Couldn't they build a decent wharf? Or weren't we worth the trouble? Somehow I hung on until I reached the whaleboat. I settled myself inside and looked around. There were 2 sailors and 3 other patients. One of the patients was a man with tears running down the creases in his cheeks. Another was a boy who was a little younger than I. Leprosy had made a straight row of lumps across his wide cheeks and down under his ears. His eyes were dark and narrow, but they looked all around as if he did not want to miss a thing. I hadn't noticed him before. But he remembered me and the way I'd kicked and screamed at everyone on board the steamer. He pulled himself as far from me as possible. Stay away from that one, he said to the 3rd patient in the boat. He is not good. The little girl stared at me, but she did not move away as the boy instructed. Her large eyes were like Kimmy's, shy but trusting. Aloha to you, the boy said to her. My name is Aloy. What is your name? The girl put 2 fingers into her mouth and did not answer. Aloy turned to the man then. Aloha to you. My name is Aloy. What is yours? The man stared off into the ocean. My name is Hulu. I could barely hear him above the sound of the water lapping at the boat. Aloy was not satisfied to know the man's name. And where do you come from? He asked. I have lived for all my life in Waipio, said Hulu. He spoke slowly and I could feel his sadness. My wife is there. And my children, too. Even my children's children live in that valley. I will never see any of them again. True, said Aloy. But we go to Molokai together. This is good. We are friends. Then he waved his hand at me. But he is rude. He is not our friend. Good, I thought. I don't need friends. Does he think going to Molokai together will make it sweet? But one of the sailors seemed to agree with Aloy. The boy is right, he said. You should all stay together. You will have to be each other's family now. Suddenly the little girl began to sob. She hunched her thin body over the woolen bundle she'd brought with her. She cries for her father, announced Aloy. He wanted to be her kokwa. But he could not come to help her because he has other children. So he told her to find a tutu to care for her. "Ah," said the sailor. "The father gives good advice." He leaned forward to capture the girl's attention. "Tell me. What's in your parcel? A comb? Some soap? Whatever it is, just show it to some tutu at the landing place and she'll take you straight home with her. You've got something she needs in that bundle. On Molokai they're desperate for everything. And she's got something for you, a house and protection. Hear me, girl." He wagged his finger playfully. "Grab onto the tutu's leg and don't let go." He went back to rowing and the girl continued her sobbing. The quiet man reached out to pat her shoulder, but he seemed far away, probably back at home with his wife and his own little grandchildren. I thought how wrong it was to send this child here without mother or father. She seemed so small, and her teeth clattered with the cold, or maybe it was fear that made her shake so. I didn't know if I could help, but I scooted closer. I thought she might shrink away from me because of what Aloy had said. But instead she leaned into me. And when she did, the wind seemed less cold. That's when I realized Aloy was right. It did feel better to go to the leprosy settlement with a friend. But still, I was not ready for the moment when the boat brought us to the shore. Suddenly the deep blue changed to a churning whiteness where the waves broke. One of the sailors slipped over the side of the boat and struggled to gain his footing. The other sailor used the oars to steady us as much as possible. Ahead, I saw patients from other whaleboats climbing onto the rocks. Water streamed from their clothing. A few stray parcels floated in the sea and desperate patients tried to retrieve them. I clutched my own bundle. I knew I could not lose it. It had my change of clothes, ointment for my sores, matches, and some food, everything I would need until my mother could send more. The sailor who'd climbed into the water wanted to help the little girl out of the boat. He reached for her bundle, but she screamed and wouldn't let go. She leaned toward me. It made me think she wanted me to hold on to her, to keep her in the boat. I wanted to. I wanted to take the oars and row both of us back to the ship. But the sailor reached for her bundle again. He yelled above the roar of the waves, "I'll give it back." The girl would not release her things, so he scooped her up, too, and called for someone on the rocks to help him. A large man with oily hair climbed down and took the girl from the sailor. "You're next," yelled the sailor, looking at me. I didn't want to go, but I knew it didn't matter what I wanted. So I scrambled over the side of the boat, gripped my possessions, and rode the waves. When I saw a boulder waiting to smash me, I shoved my bundle between it and my head. The water slammed me against it and I bounced back, tossed like seaweed. I reached my feet into the sand. But there wasn't much sand. Rocks covered the floor of the landing place. Unable to get a foothold, I grabbed for a boulder. I hung onto it while I caught my breath. The waves battered me and I felt my hand slipping. I thought of Kameka then, of how he would coax me up treacherous mountain trails. I didn't want to think of him, and yet those memories helped me to hang on. I dragged myself over the rocky beach and climbed the black rocks that rose just above the shore. Then I stopped at the top to take in big gulps of air and to see what I had come to. Just ahead, I saw the little girl. The man still held her, but she was flailing her legs and pounding his chest with her fists. Then an old woman took pity on the girl and reached for her. But he did not let go. "She's mine, Kiona. I got her out of the water." "No, Albert," said the woman. "You have a house full of girls. This one is too young for you. Take your hands off her." The child screamed and reached for the woman named Kiona. "Tutu," she cried. "I want my tutu." The old woman smiled. "Albert, she won't let you sleep. She'll be crying for tutu every day and all night." Albert set the girl free then, as if he were scared of a crying child. But his eyes followed her in a way that made me feel he hadn't let her go. I could see he would not be a good father. He cared more for his own desires than he did for any small child. When the girl slid out of Albert's arms, she grabbed Kiona's leg. Even when the old woman tried to pick her up, she would not let go. Albert tucked in his shirt tails and straightened his cravat. Then he looked toward the boat as if it might provide him with another girl. I did not like the look of Albert. A heavy mustache drooped around the sides of his mouth, and loose skin puffed into dark bags beneath his small black eyes. I was so busy watching him that I forgot to guard my bundle. But then I felt it slipping from my hand. I turned to see a wicked grin on the face of the man who had taken it. "In this place there is no law," he announced, winking at someone who stood behind me. I lunged for my bundle, but he was quick and shuffled it behind him, where another man latched onto it. I tore at the second man and knocked him backward. I grabbed my bundle and started to run, but then I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned and a tall, skinny man with only one bushy black eyebrow thrust his face into mine. "Aloha to you," he said. "My name is Boki. Stay with me and you'll be safe." I looked at Boki and then at the other residents who had come to greet us. Boki seemed different somehow. It took me a moment to realize why. Most of the people here wore clothing that was torn and layered with mud. But Boki's black pants and blue shirt were in good condition. And clean, too. His hair was trimmed and combed. He and Albert looked as if they belonged in Honolulu with vendors selling trinkets. Or providing women and rum to thirsty whalers. I saw the two of them nodding and winking, using some secret language that the rest of us could not understand. Beyond the people who came to watch us I could barely see their wooden houses. Between here and there were grass and rocks. Lots of rocks. And no trees. Was this Hawaii? Had they truly brought us to one of our islands? Where was the color? I was used to green leafiness that spilled out of the mountains and down to the shore. And flowers of every color dripping from vines that covered trees, rock walls, and even our porches. Boki must have seen me eyeing the settlement. "Every house is taken," he said. He gripped my shoulder. "But I will put a roof over your head." Why did this man think I needed his roof? I knew how to build a dry shelter with sticks and thatches of grass. "You'll starve without me," Boki warned. But I didn't believe him. Kameka had taught me everything he knew about the plants of Hawaii and the foods they offered. And I could catch shrimps from the ocean. Boki's hand tightened until I felt pain. "At my house you will have a man of power to protect you. That's hard to find in Kalawao." I thought of the thieves who had tried to take my bundle. I could feel them watching me now, waiting for me to relax my grip. I wondered if Boki was working with them. Was he trying to distract me so they could catch me unawares? I looked at Boki. He held himself proudly, as if he owned this place. Already I could feel his power. But I also saw that he was blind in one eye. That was when I knew for sure that I couldn't trust him. My mother had taught me that a one-eyed man meant bad luck. I didn't need his protection. After all, I was not like the little girl who needed a father to care for her. I could look out for myself. With a sudden twist I slipped out of Boki's hold and dashed away from this band of thieves.